Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast, empowering you to take a whole person approach to your well-being, spirit, soul, and body. Join me, your host, Dr. Lara, naturopathic doctor, entrepreneur, and a servant of Jesus Christ. We are not just a body, we are spirit and soul. It's time to integrate medicine and spirituality into our healing. Let's get started. Welcome back to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. I'm Dr. Lara, and today we're going to have a conversation about a topic that not many people like to have, and that's discussing grief. So as this episode airs in early October, we're coming into months where people will start experiencing hard times as they have had loss in their life, right? It's inevitable, and so people sometimes have a really hard time going through the holidays. So joining me, I have my guest, Casey Nichols from Valley Fitness Kickboxing.
Yep.
And the reason that we're having this conversation is because one day after we were done with kickboxing, you were checking in on me, how I was doing with my dad's loss. And this led to a very awesome conversation that we started to have about grief and how we both, interestingly, process grief in a very unhealthy way at one point in our life. Right. So I think it's very important that we have a platform to talk about these things and, to share our knowledge and wisdom with other people who might be younger, because no one really teaches us how do we process loss, how do we process grief.
Yeah. Like we were saying in that conversation, it's kind of funny how when you're brought up, your parents and everyone that's guiding you in life teaches you all these things, but they kind of don't teach you one of the most important things is when grief strikes, and it will strike, what do you do? And we're all different people from different genders, cultures, whatever, but it's going to happen to you. And there's not a one size fits all, but you're going to kind of have to find your way of dealing with whatever is happening to you.
Right.
And you can't ignore it.
Can't ignore it. It's going to happen to all of us, right? We're going to experience loss of a loved one, of a friend, family members, loss of a job, anything that we lose brings grief into our life. So we're going to get really, in depth here and talk about some of the things that we found that we had in common and how we process grief unhealthy at one point in our life. So share a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So this past Monday, which was August 26th, I celebrated 5 years of sobriety. So that means that 6 years ago, I was not sober. Going all the way back in 2013, when I was 33 years old, my older brother passed away. And it was a very tragic thing. We didn't expect it. Unfortunately, he took his own life. So it was extremely horrible and tragic, and no one saw it coming. It's not like we were dealing with this illness. It was horrible. And at that point, I was 33 years old. I lived in Southern California. I had a good job. I had a girlfriend. I had a bunch of friends. Like, I had a really good life. And I'd never, I had gone out drinking with friends and stuff. Like, we went out, but I didn't use anything on a consistent basis. I should re-say that. I didn't use drugs at all, really. Yeah. I might smoke some weed or anything. But when that happened, I was beside myself with grief. I remember literally feeling like I got hit by a truck. It affected not only me emotionally, but physically. Like, I can't even express to somebody how horrible and how the weight that you feel on you. It's unbelievable. And so when I came back to Arizona for his service, a girl that I went to high school with gave me a Percocet at his service, a painkiller. And I remember being at his service and then the kind of the after party, the wake afterwards, and I didn't feel that bad. I remember I saw some old friends. It wasn't fun, but I didn't feel that horrible weight of depression. And so I thought, well, I should get some more of those Percocets. And so that started a very long, very dark, very horrible self-medicating process. And eventually that turned into a dependency, and it turned into more of a chemical dependency than an emotional thing. But long story short, I didn't deal with the grief in the right way. I didn't go to a grief counselor. my group of friends didn't know what to do with me. It was such a horrible thing, and it happened out of the blue. And all of my guy friends, I literally remember they all said the same thing. They said, I don't know what to say to you. And they were being genuine, and I felt bad for them. And I know they felt horrible for me, but it's such a strange thing, and guys don't know how to deal with that stuff. No one's ever told us what to do. And I remember a couple of friends invited me over for dinner, and we had these awkward dinners and conversations because they were trying to do something. They knew they needed to do something, but they didn't know what to do. And some friends tried not to bring it up, and that didn't work. And I remember I had one or two friends like, we're just going to get you drunk. We're just going to keep getting you drunk. And that didn't work. And I just went through this very slow, very long process of pulling away from everyone because they felt weird, I felt weird. And then my usage tripled, quadrupled. And fast forward probably in 2015, so 2 years after that, my life was obliterated. My job was gone. My girlfriends were gone. My girlfriend was gone.
It's okay.
My girlfriend was gone. My job was gone. My friends were gone. My money was gone. At one point, my freedom was gone. Everything was demolished. I burned my life to the ground, all because I couldn't go to therapy, or I couldn't find an outlet for that. Now, my mother went through the same thing I did, and probably even worse. She lost her son.
Yeah.
My mom has every reason in the world to be a bitter person and to be mean and to be just hating life and hating God and everything. My mom is the kindest, sweetest, nicest person on the face of the earth, and she's had horrible things happen to her. She lost her son. She lost her own brother when she was in her 20s. But she loves life, and she's the kindest person ever. When my brother died in 2013, her best friend came to the house every day, got her up, took her to coffee, took her for walks, and they talked about it. And they talked about him, and they talked about all the fond memories. And she didn't bottle it down. She didn't ignore it. She had someone with her that she could just talk to. And she didn't actually go to grief therapy, but she had a grief therapist built in with her best friend, Marcy. And my mom got through it pretty well. I did not. I'm supposed to be the big, strong, tough guy. And, fast forward 2 years, and I'm still a mess. And not only now, I created a much bigger problem because I had a dependency, and I still never dealt with my brother's death. So even when I got clean and sober, then I had to go through the grieving process all over again. So as a guy, it was extremely hard, not only to see it and to be like, okay, I have to deal with this, I can't avoid it, but then what do you do? Do I go to counseling? It's such a strange, horrible thing. But if you don't deal with it, strange, horrible things are going to happen to you. And I am proof that if you don't deal with the problem, it's going to become much, much, much bigger.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that. I mean, I know that this is getting recorded, but I'm just sitting here listening to everything that you're saying, like if the cameras are not there. And I just want to say thank you for being willing to be vulnerable and share all that detail, because this is why I tell people any person, any good person can go down any of these, behavioral patterns and end up in chaos. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It comes from not dealing with grief in a healthy way,
right?
And this is a great example of what I mean, there's so many great points that you share. Like your friends, they cared about you.
They loved me,
but they don't know how. And that is the honest truth of society and our world and our friends. And sometimes people, they don't know how to show up.
Yeah. And guys especially, we're the heavyweight champion of not dealing with our emotions and ignoring our emotions. And when something happens to someone you care about, and it's so powerful, it affects you. You don't know what to do with them. You're supposed to do something, but you don't know what to say to them. Yeah. And we need, as a society, but men, we need to figure out, and we should have older role models teaching us, okay, when life punches you in the face, you do this and this and this. And it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to express this stuff and to get it out and not let it, bundle up and build up. And it's like an emotional cancer.
Yeah, great analogy. It is an emotional cancer. And you're right. We have a society that we live in and many different small social circles that they've given the term emotions or feelings a negative, connotation.
Yeah.
But it's not. God gave us these feelings and emotions for a reason. But we do need to learn how do we balance that? How do we navigate them? How do we, use them? And then what do we listen to or not? And no one's really, I think more people are becoming aware of that.
Yeah.
And they're trying to learn that. But emotional regulation is really important, especially I can see in men too. Like, I mean, culture that I just heard many people in my family, when a little boy is crying, stop crying when the girls cry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the wrong message to send, because when you do lose your brother from suicide, that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
you want to cry.
Yeah, I was raised under a very strong and silent type, boys don't cry, a very John Wayne household, if people know what that means. And when feelings hit me over the head like a ton of brick, I did not know how to deal with them. And so I didn't. I self-medicated. And self-medicating through a tragedy like that, even a minor tragedy, self-medicating is the wrong thing to do. Because it's like dumping gasoline on a fire. You're taking a problem and you're making it 10 times worse. Yeah. It literally ruined my entire life.
I always tell people, Casey, we can deal with the emotions or the situation right now and pay the price now and do it, or we can do it later. Yeah. But it's going to come with accumulated interest, and it'll be harder. Like you made such great points. Like you said, yeah, you got over the addiction, but you still haven't.
I still had to go through it.
You still had to go through the grief
I still had
process.
to mourn them.
So it's like you go through the grief process early on, or you do it later on, right? And it's going to hit you at one point. Yeah. But no one tells you that when you're 33 or 20 years old.
Yeah, and I realized in this whole process, and I'm actually a very emotional person, and I'm more in touch with them now, and I think I know how to deal with them now a little bit better than I did. But trying to ignore that they even exist is just foolish.
It's ludicrous.
It's stupid.
It's the dumbest
You're
thing
a human
to think
being.
You're not going to have that. Emotions is what makes us human.
Yeah.
Rocks don't have emotions.
It's part of the good part of it being human. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the one thing I learned through my journey, and I'll share my story, because we both made unhealthy choices, right?
Yeah, I went one direction.
There's not one
other. Better
than the other one. I always said it was just a matter of time that I would probably go down the rabbit hole in one way or another, But is that if it went, so one thing that I learned in my healing process, and then I'll share my story, is that when we suppress one emotion, like a bad emotion, like we don't want to feel grief, really we don't want to feel the sadness. It sucks to feel sad, so we don't want to feel it. We want to avoid it. And by suppressing the sadness, we also suppress all the other emotions. So our brain has a part that I should have brought my brain prop today. I didn't, guys. But there's the limbic system, and in that limbic system is the amygdala. And this part of the brain, the amygdala, this is the center of the brain where we feel emotions, the good and the bad ones. We also perceive pain there. Isn't that interesting that the same part of the brain where we perceive pain is also the emotional center?
They're connected, yeah.
So emotions can be painful.
Oh, God, yeah.
And pain can cause you to be emotional. Yeah. I've worked with a lot of people with chronic pain who've had tragic accidents. And what do? They feel emotional. Yeah. Men who all of a sudden they feel very emotional. And sometimes those emotions come out as anger. Yeah. Emotions are not bad. It's what we do with them. Yeah. How we react to life around us. So an emotion could be love and joy and happiness, laughter, right? Yeah. Those are your emotions that are good. But so is sadness and anger and rage and frustration, loneliness and sadness. Like all of those are emotions.
Yeah, it's a yin or yang. And I think if there's a point I could get across to the viewers out there, is that if you're a guy or a female, having emotions is not a bad thing. You're going to have emotions. You want to have emotions. You want to. You just need to know how to deal with the bad ones and the good ones when they come up.
Yeah, have an outlet for them.
You just need to use a sports analogy, you need to have a playbook when something really, really bad happens.
And that's it. You got to have a playbook. You have to have some tools and things to turn to, right? Yeah. So that when you do feel that, you have an outlet for it, or you have a way to regulate it. So if you suppress sadness, you're going to suppress joy and happiness, love.
That's actually a really good point. So when I was going through the dark ages, as I call them, I was using, which you would think would be a really fun, happy time, I don't think I smiled for 4 years straight. Like, not only did I suppress my negative emotions, I suppressed everything.
All of them.
Everyone described me as like, they said you were a very watered down version of yourself. You had no joy. You were just like a zombie. Like, you just were a version of yourself that was like 70% or 60% faded away. Like, your personality was gone. I suppressed everything.
So the interesting thing about grief is that it will hijack your brain. There's such thing as grief brain. Like, they have brain fog. Well, people have, grief
that makes sense.
brain. Like they grief and their brain is like hijacked. And that's why you see that in other people. And obviously our stories, there was good things that came out of that because we walked that, journey to know what it's like. So my story was when I was 20, my brother, who was 34 at the time, had leukemia. And he was young, he was fit, he was a lively person, like the life of our family. He had 4 children too. And I just thought, I was super optimistic. God is going to heal him. He's going to get healed. He's going to fight. This is in 1999. Okay, medical treatments then were not what they are now. He had no fighting chance. He did maybe a couple of treatments of chemo, and he decided on his own that he wasn't going to do that. And he kind of came to accepting his death. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was like still optimistic, and I was in denial. You have the 4 or 5 stages of grief. I was in denial that whole time.
The whole time.
He's not going to die. He's going to make it.
So when it did happen, it felt like it was sudden.
So I had this God moment where it was a day after his birthday. I went to hike South Mountain. I ran up this trail in August. It was hot. It was early morning. And I had this encounter where when I got to the top, I said, God, take my life and give it to him. And I'm trying not to get emotional here, but I wanted to give him my life because he had 4 children and I didn't. And I felt like if I could just give him my life. And I remember saying to God, people need him. He has children. Nobody needs me. And that I heard God's voice clearly say, that's not the way it works.
You heard it?
I heard him tell me, that's not the way it works. His time has come. And it was something about hearing that just kind of brought me to my knees and said, yeah, he's leaving. He's done. And I had, of course, that encounter kept me there where I knew that, and some people may believe this or not, it doesn't really matter. I know what I experienced at the top of that mountain that day. I felt the encounter of God, Holy Spirit, and Jesus all in that moment on top of that mountain because I was desperate. And I heard God tell me that his son had already shed his blood on the cross for us. I was not going to church at this time, Casey.
Oh, you weren't?
No, at
really?
this time, I believed in God. But I wasn't like going to church. I knew everything about the Bible. No, but God told me that he already shed his life for us. And that while I had a noble heart, that's not the way it worked.
Wow, I didn't know that part.
Yeah,
Wow.
And not many people know that. Well, now they will.
So even after that, even after you had that God moment, which you would think would be kind of cathartic.
Right.
But you...
I didn't cry.
Yeah.
Before, I didn't cry. That was while he was ill, that was the first time I cried. But I didn't cry. That was the rule. I'm not going to cry around my family and my brother. I wanted to be strong for him and the family.
That makes sense in a certain context, but when you're by yourself, did you break down?
I broke down when I was by myself.
Yeah, you probably needed to.
I needed to. A month later, he died, and I remember not crying after that, not crying for his service.
Really?
The funeral, like I was just like a rock. I felt that I needed to be strong. Like that was a good thing. But if you remember my conversation with you, When I was 6 years old and I experienced the death of someone, it was one of my aunts. I didn't know we died. I didn't understand any of that. And I had this situation where I went up to the casket and I touched her, and immediately my brain knew she's not there.
Yeah, she's not there.
And I had such a strong emotional response in that moment. I cried so loud. I mean, I was like really not able to. I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
So, and obviously the adults around me were not able to help me through that. So they were yelling at him. I remember women yelling at me, calm down, like calming me down. And that was actually firing up my brain more, creating more of a trauma response in me. I remember that night going to sleep, crying. I cried and cried and cried until I fell asleep. I was not allowed to participate the next day in any of the funeral, arrangements that they do. But I remember nobody talked to me about it.
Yeah.
I don't remember anyone hugging me, touching me, telling me it's okay, you're safe. And that's what the little girl in me needed.
Yeah.
A hug.
Yeah.
You're gonna be okay. It's okay. And then someone to tell me this is what happened. Never had that.
That's really interesting. So when you very first experienced it, nobody, they communicated to you in a way that you need to be strong and shut up.
Shut up.
And then the second time it happened to you, you did it unconsciously. Or subconsciously.
It was making up for that response.
You thought, oh, this happened again. This is what I'm supposed to do.
I remember clearly after the age of 6, I constantly thought about God, and I would think about, why did God put us on this earth? Where did we come from? Why are we here? What am I supposed to do here? And when we die, where do we go? Like, where did my aunt go? I knew her physical body was there, but as a child, I knew she wasn't there.
Right.
So I'm trying to explore the soul and the spirit at 6 years old. And I had no guidance from anyone. And I wasn't talking about it to anyone. And so I remember it was a constant everyday thing that I would think about and process.
So when your brother passed, did you kind of repeat that same thing? Like after it happened? What was the next 6 months of your life?
So from the time of 6 years old to my adult life, I made it the intention that I was going to become stronger and stronger emotionally. But my perception of stronger was to not show and express
really good
emotion.
Point. Strong emotionally does not mean ignoring your emotions.
It. And I did that.
Knowing how to deal with them.
And I remember every year I kind of mentally would check myself, like, I'm getting stronger. I'm not crying. I'm not crying about this. Like, I'm stronger and stronger, more resilient. And I was patting myself on the back for that. And it was unhealthy. It was an unhealthy way to look at emotions. So when my brother got sick, I was strong. Besides that one moment at the mountain that I broke down, everything else was, I'm strong. So when he did pass away, September 19th is when he passed away in 1999. I remember I unconsciously, with not realizing my actions, I went into complete avoidance.
Yeah.
Not thinking about it. It wasn't something I planned. I went into autopilot. And and I know this now because I have unpacked all that and did a lot of healing in the last year, 10, 15 years of my life. But what I realized was that I felt this immense pain of seeing my brother, a strong young man, dying slowly before me, and thinking, this hurts a lot. It hurts a lot to see someone die. And so then I thought, I never want to feel this again. Forget this. Yeah. And so and unconsciously realizing that the closer someone is to me, it's going to hurt me more.
Yeah. So you keep people at bay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I started putting up, I put up walls around me, around friendships and family.
If I don't have connections, I can't get hurt.
Yeah, I can't. If I don't have a connection, it's not going to hurt me.
It's such a horrible
I can just
way to
run
go
away
through
from it.
life.
It's such a man thing to do.
Yeah, it's very true.
So this is why I think this conversation is important, because a lot of people think that only men do this, but no, a lot of women run away from the pain too.
Yeah.
And it could be a cultural, family upbringing thing, whatever. But I went into avoidance. So what I did is I overworked myself. I was in college full time. I was working full time. I was part of all these different nonprofit organizations. Anything I can volunteer myself to, I signed myself up to. As long as I didn't get to see my family, I was good.
So you avoided all your family
I avoided
members.
everyone.
Yeah.
I remember,
That's sad.
Shortly after my brother passed away, if I was in my mom's presence and she would start to cry, and like reminisce about him, I would like, peace out, I'm out.
Yeah.
I was so cold. I wasn't rude to her, but I would find a way to like, I need to peel myself away from this. I don't want to sit in your pain and discomfort, because guess what? I don't want to sit in my pain and discomfort. And I did a whole conversation a couple episodes back on the art of compassion. And I said on there, I know these things because I have walked through them, because I was doing these things. And I know that when someone can't sit with your pain, they don't have compassion. It's because they don't want to feel your pain. They don't want to feel their pain.
They can't go through it themselves.
They can't go through it.
I remember a couple months after it happened, my mom talked about him all the time. And I had a lot of that feeling of like trying to avoid the conversation or trying to change the subject. And then I heard someone else a long time later talking about, if you do that, you're robbing yourself of the memories of that person. So if you get so closed off to a point that you're not able to talk about how wonderful they were and how amazing they were and all these good times that you had together, you're not only are they gone, but now all those memories are gone. But if you deal with it in a healthy way, then you're able, and now I can talk to my mom, we reminisce about him all the time. And it's great and it feels good to talk about all that fun stuff. But if both of us didn't get to a place where we could, then neither one of us would be able to talk about those emotions. So if you don't deal with it, you're going to rob yourself of all these beautiful, amazing memories of that person, and that's wrong.
I didn't go through my healing process till I think my body caught up to me eventually.
When did it hit you?
I was like 26, 27 years old. I remember it was 2006. That's when I was like, I physically cannot function. My brain was not there. And I went to the doctor and they're like, oh, you have hypothyroid, you have this, you have that. But Casey, I just knew in my heart that it was all that grief that I never dealt with, all the emotions that were just piling up inside of me that I never dealt with. And I walked away from that doctor's visit asking myself, what did I do? What did I do that contributed to me being here? And immediately my mind went to my brother's loss. Wow. And I was almost angry. I was angry, like, damn it. Like, why is it still showing up? It's been 8 years ago, 7 years ago. Like, why?
In a way, you said to yourself, I've already dealt with this, but you never did. I never dealt with it.
I was avoiding it. So there's ways that we deal with trauma. And one of them is avoiding. We just avoid it. We don't look at it. It's just easier to keep moving. And I would not recommend to anyone to do that, because that will make it worse.
It'll eventually bubble up. It'll either come out in a different area of your life, or it'll come out as stress or something.
Anger.
Will find. That's a horrible one. And then you take it out on people around you.
Absolutely.
It's a horrible way to do it.
You either take it out on other people, or you take it out on yourself.
Or yourself, you feel guilty for whatever.
Exactly. And the other way that, there's many ways, but the other way that people sometimes will deal with trauma is to minimize the problem. So you have this big situation that happened, experience, but you make it small so you can handle this little problem instead of this big situation that happened. And I realized through my process of dealing with grief and all of that unpacking the trauma was that I was an expert at avoidance and minimizing. I grew up in the hood. No big deal. Like, so what? Drive-by shooting?
It happens.
Like,
no big deal.
It wasn't a big deal. Like, I didn't see it as a big deal. And I became an expert at doing that in my life. So now I had to unpack that and say, no, we face the issues that come at us in the moment that we're in. And it was a process. I remember I probably started my healing journey definitely from 2007 and on, and even through medical school. I always say medical school was a hospital for me. It really was. I had many great doctors and colleagues that helped me through that, to process that. And I knew that God needed me to heal through that before I became a doctor.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that's why
you got to be fixed before you can fix others.
And that's why this podcast is called Physician Heal Thyself, because I had to go through that process of healing myself to be comfortable working with other people. Can you imagine in my office, people are sharing their trauma, their pain, their hurt, their grief. And I'm like, I could never have been the doctor that I am today had I not given myself that time to heal and process the trauma and just unpack it all, and now allow myself to feel. And I realized, Casey, that feeling those emotions are actually my superpower.
Mm-hmm.
Because being in tune with my emotions makes me feel other people's emotions. And that's what makes me a good doctor, is that I can feel their pain and I can understand with compassion where they're coming from. I can have empathy for them, and guiding them.
Someone told me a long time ago that your feelings are there for a reason, and we're connected to each other and to this planet and into life and to reality, and you don't want to disconnect any of those little feelers. You need to know how to deal with them and how much attention to pay to them, but you don't want to disconnect from anything. You need to be a part of this whole thing, and you need to be a part of, of the culture and the people around you. And so if you're disconnecting, then that's a horrible, horrible way to go.
Absolutely.
So even if you have negative emotions, those negative emotions are there for a reason. All our emotions are for a reason. So you need to figure out why and figure out what you can do with it versus disconnecting.
And I'll even go further to say that, absolutely, I've always say that our emotions are like little antennas on in our body, in our nervous system. That it's our feelers, that we feel the environment. Is this safe or not? And it lets our nervous system is really quick. It'll let us know this environment is safe or not. That's really what our nervous system is there for. Yeah. Are you safe or not? And the moment you don't feel safe, that's when we start doing the dumb, unhealthy things, right? That we self-medicate, whatever it is. But the emotions are there, and it is a network of. That's why you can go into an environment. And it's fun, it's safe, or you're like, hey, there's something really weird going on. I gotta get out.
Yeah, you gotta trust your gut.
Yeah.
So what's one thing that you wished you would have done when you got off that mountain? Like right when your brother passed, within those first couple of weeks?
Oh, what a great question, Casey. I wish I would have been more expressive to my brother, just really tell him how much he meant to me. And I know that whole experience brought me closer to God. It really did. And I wish I would have understood what I know now that I understood then, and that was that I knew where his soul was gonna go. Because this experience around with my dad was different when he passed away.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's different types.
That's what we were talking about was that. So that's what I would have done. That's what I would have done, is I would have been more expressive to him of my love, because my brother was kind of like a rough guy. But if there's one thing I'll tell you of everyone in our family, he was the most expressive emotionally. He hugged us and loved over us. And that's what was missed, was that's what he represented to me and our family, that he was comfortable expressing himself. I wasn't.
So he was like a rough, manly man and in touch with his emotions?
Yeah, he was the kind of guy, like if someone started trouble with him, he would have no problem fighting. Yeah. But at the same, he was the one who started teaching me how to fight when I was young. Yeah, because he was like, you're going to need to know how to fight.
You're going to need to know.
Someone's going to mess with you. You need to fight back.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good analogy. If you're a human being walking on this face of the earth, grief is going to happen. It is. So you need to learn how to fight it.
I felt very unfair. Like, why him? Yeah. like he's healthy, he's young, he's vibrant.
Why him? I've asked that question. I've screamed at the heavens so many times.
Yeah. And see, with my dad, I didn't ask that.
It's a different type.
Yeah. So we talked about, when we were at the gym, we were talking about how, and some people might disagree with this. It doesn't really matter. You're entitled to your opinion. But I do believe that grief is different based on each experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because you could have two brothers that pass away. Suicide is very...
It's gnarly.
There's so much unanswered questions.
Yeah.
It's closure makes it difficult.
Yeah, there really is no. Yeah.
Yeah. There's horrible. All these questions you have.
It's horrible almost on every scale. It was almost so bad it was overwhelming. And I remember feeling like in a daze for those first, couple weeks or days. What, and then all these questions that you're never going to get answered. Never. And you have to figure out a way to come to terms with that.
Yeah. I've had friends who've committed suicide, and I can't imagine what the family felt.
Oh, my God.
But I know as a friend, I'm like, why did you do that?
Why?
That's why. And then you get angry, and it's like, could I have prevented it?
Yeah.
Why didn't I see it?
Yeah. I blamed myself. I blamed others. I blamed God.
Right? Everyone.
I don't know. Hopefully one day I'll get to ask him.
You will. You'll get your answer. Sometimes people's pain is so much they cannot handle
it. It was overwhelming.
It's overwhelming to them.
It was overwhelming.
And
I felt like I was falling off a cliff.
Yeah. So it's like, can you imagine, like, what was your brother experiencing in his life?
No, yeah.
That he was led to just end it there.
Yeah, pretty horrible.
Yeah.
If I was gonna, I kind of asked myself the same question. I think I was so overwhelmed, and I was surrounded. I'm a guy's guy. I'm early 30s. Like, I needed professional help. I mean, it would have been great if I had a buddy that I could have talked to, an outlet, but I was so far gone that I should have sought grief counseling right away. And just to deal with all of those questions, all of the what ifs, all of the anger, all of the confusion, frustration, to just talk about all that stuff and just get it out with someone that knows how to help you navigate all of that.
Yeah.
That would have been extremely helpful. And it's kind of funny to think where my life would have gone if that point in my life I hadn't taken a sharp left. But if I just would have either not ignored my emotions or just heavily medicated them, if I just would have dealt with them as they came up. If a thought came up or something happened, just talk about it and just deal with it and get it out. Like, or let the river flow through you and don't dam it up.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a great point. I definitely think that talking about it, there is healing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't until I started talking about it that it brought me healing.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I did EMDR.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I had to do EMDR through some of that just to help remove. It got to the point in my life that anytime I even would think of his name or think of him or his name would come up or anything like that, I would just cry.
Yeah.
It was like I had no intelligence in my, like I couldn't express myself.
Yeah, it
So
takes your body over.
Yeah, EMDR was very helpful to me, and that's where I found healing at the physical level as well. Once I dealt with the emotional stuff, but I realized that after that, now this is many years ago, right? Like I could talk about things. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. I could talk about things that I wasn't able to talk about before without letting the emotions control me anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, you're either going to have control of your emotions or your emotions are going to have control of you eventually. And it's going to lead you down this path of destruction. So if anything, I want our audience to just know that we're real people who had, hurt.
Yeah.
We love losing someone we loved. And we took this unnecessary turn. But
Did the wrong thing.
But we learned a lot in that process, even if it took us many years, right? That we can teach others. And I would really love for young people to be wiser than we were, right? And to learn ways of coping with loss early on versus, not doing it. And we don't know when these things happen, but just to know that there are experts out there, there's professionals out there that you can talk to. If your friends, your family are not good outlets for you to talk to, then get someone who's neutral.
Yeah.
And have that conversation, someone that can guide you through dealing with those emotions and can help give you the healthy tools, right? To do it. There is no easy way.
No, there isn't. And I think that's a good point. I think we can all agree that something bad is going to happen, and there isn't a one size fits all. Take this pill and it'll cure everything. Whatever your situation is, whatever your context is, your solution might be different than somebody else's, but there is a solution to it, and you're just going to have to go and try a couple things until you find the right thing. But bottling it up is not going to work.
It's not going to help.
And I wish that our guy culture wasn't so strong, silent type. There's some good points to that, but I think if you're not able to, if you're ignoring that you even have emotions, you're going to get bit in the butt pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I hope that over the generations, our culture evolves a little bit and guys get a little more in touch with how to deal with their emotions. And I wish guys would be better fosters or role models for younger men. I didn't have too many guys. I didn't have a good dad. That's a whole different episode. But I wish there was like an older guy. I wish I had a brother that could teach me, like, no, don't do that, do this, or hey, I see you going down that path, do this.
Like the importance of like the older man in a young man's life.
Learning.
I think that's
from
really
others.
important, right? That men are mentoring other younger men.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue that I think men are.
Because women do that.
Yeah.
They do this a
Like
lot.
if you see a girl crying, all of her friends will huddle around and go,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, you're okay." If you see a guy crying, his buddies will
Like,
either hand him a beer or will go make fun of him. Like
it's interesting with your situation how they're like,
yeah.
hey, let's just get you more drunk.
That's literally, I remember I
Yeah.
could picture his face. We're just gonna get you drunk till you feel better. And I was like, I don't think that's the right thing to do. But yeah, women are so good at I feel like girls at such a young age deal with their emotions way better than guys do. And some guys are stunted emotionally at 5 and 6 years old, some at 13 years old.
Yeah.
But you'll see girls huddle around each other and take care of each other better than guys do. So when those horrible things happen to us guys, we need to be proactive to find an outlet or figure it out, because dude, you're gonna wind up in a dark place.
Yeah. And even with and you know, one of the things that you said that I see in my clinic is that younger men are more interested in taking care of themselves, their mental and emotional health.
I like that.
And just young people in general, they are more open to taking care of issues early on, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And I encourage that, because one of the things that our audience should know is that the older you get, and you're not dealing with your trauma and your emotions and all those issues, it gets harder with every decade. So in your 30s, you know, okay, you got a lot of opportunity. In your 40s, you still got opportunity. But it is almost like consistently the 50-plus-year-olds that come in that have never resolved the issues from their past. It's showing up physically. It's showing up in their behavior. And they're like, I don't know why I can't handle this situation. I've dealt with worse in the past. It's like, yeah, it's because you never dealt with those issues. Then now your nervous system is just overloaded, and it needs healing. You need to let some of that go.
Yeah, you can almost over the years emotionally tie yourself into knots, and you need to and there could be one master knot and little sprinkles off of it, but there might just be one knot that got tied 20 years ago that you never untied.
You need to untie that. That's a really great analogy. Really great analogy. I feel like this conversation can just continue in many directions, just like our last episode on nutrition, right? I think it can really go down in many directions. And more than anything, I just want people to know that you have every right to feel the emotions that you feel. And here's the interesting thing. If you just give that sadness enough time to feel it and then move on for the day, it'll dissipate. You know, if you need to cry. If you feel angry, find an outlet. Go kickboxing. That's my outlet. Go work out. Move your body. There's so many benefits to moving your body that will help with the grief. So I want to give some tips, and I'll probably do more episodes on the process of grief, because I just feel like, especially going into these next months, with the holidays, I know personally, I just, no matter what, I just feel some sort of way. My dad just died, so I know it's going to do that. Are different. So, you know, some of the things that with grief that can help is making sure that you're resting. And I know sometimes when people are grieving, it's very difficult for them to even sleep, to eat, but try to keep a routine, a healthy routine throughout your day where you are making sure you're eating, where you're making sure you're exercising, moving your body, and then you are making time to spending with others. Like, find a buddy, just like your mom had someone to turn to.
It saved her life.
Find someone that you can turn to and that you can tell them, hey, I need you to hold me accountable. That if you see me kind of avoiding or doing these things, like, I want you to do that. I did that. I did that this last time with my dad before, when I knew. I said, hey, I'm going to need you to hold me accountable. I'm going to need you to check in on me. I would have never in my past years.
See, that to me is emotional. I would have
never reached out to someone.
That to me is emotionally strong.
Yeah.
Knowing that you need it and asking for it.
And then you could potentially go down that rabbit hole again.
Yeah.
And I said, I told myself, I'm doing things different this time. I'm not going to do the unhealthy behaviors that I did when my brother passed away.
If I had a guy friend say that to me, I would think, wow, that's really emotionally strong.
How mature of him to say that. What a smart,
mature person, not woo.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think people in general, men and women, we just need to grow emotionally, be more mature, right? To know how to support each other and be there for each other.
Yeah.
Build that, but make yourself a priority mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel like you're falling apart.
Yeah.
It's okay to be vulnerable and say, damn it hurts.
Yeah.
this hurts. I'll tell you this time around with my father's passing, what's made the biggest difference has been my relationship with God.
Yeah, but
yeah, it has. And I'm not saying it to be all kumbaya or, you know, super spiritual. Like, sincerely, the things that God revealed to me throughout the last months of his life and when he passed and after that brought me this just unexplainable peace.
It's got to be comforting.
Very. And it's still strange to me. I'm okay to say it feels strange to feel peace.
Do you think it feels strange because you, in some way, you think you feel okay that he's gone?
I feel peace because I know where his soul is at, which if you go back to when my aunt died, I knew she wasn't there, and I didn't know where she was going.
You didn't know where she was. That makes a lot of sense.
But now I know. Yeah. And there were revelations that my dad shared with me that I'm like, he never read that. He never read a Bible. He never saw that. How would he know that?
He's just spitting out verses.
So I knew that God was putting that in him, and that brought me peace. So that's the other thing with, if you don't have a relationship with God, find one quick, ASAP. Get to it. Pick up a Bible and read it.
Go hike South Mountain.
Go hike South Mountain by yourself. Run up South Mountain or a mountain if you're not in Arizona. But find those moments to do that, to grieve. Hey, we're going to wrap this up. We can keep going, I'm sure. But I hope you've taken some value out of our conversations, a male and female perspective, and our experiences that we dealt with grief in a very unhealthy way. And if you've lost someone, whether it's recent or many years ago, I highly encourage that you find the courage to just dig deep down. Go get the help that you need. Hire an expert, someone who's a professional who can help you process the grief. If you currently have someone you've lost in your life, find someone to talk to. If you don't have a friend or family member to do that, then find help. There's support groups that are for free, and there's many people that you can hire that maybe your insurance will even cover for you to do that. It's much better for you to deal with grief up front and give yourself time. There is no time limit.
That's true.
There's no time limit on when. It's just, it doesn't get easier. The load just gets a little bit lighter over the years. So as always, thank you for your time. Share this message, share this video with someone that you think would benefit from it. And until next time, be blessed. Thank you for listening to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Help this message reach more people who may need to hear it. Leave your comments. I want to know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about Raices, visit our website at raicesndmedcenter.com. Until next time, be blessed.